Hey everybody, what's up? Happy Friday. Welcome back. Welcome back from vacation, time off. I don't know, whatever we had in July, beginning of July, whatever that was. Um, Today we're going to be taking a look at Photoshop for photographers. Now, Photoshop's an amazing tool that I've used since version one, basically, since day one, version one, a little mostly version two. That's when I started. But yeah, it's been around for a long time. It does a lot of things for a lot of people. Photographers, of course, will sometimes get confused as to why they even need it, especially if they're using Lightroom. And before we get too much further, let's go ahead and do a couple housekeeping rules. First and foremost, let me bring up my chat here. I realize that you guys can be watching from various platforms. So the main stream is on YouTube, but you could be watching it on LinkedIn, Facebook, even Instagram. And of course, if you're on Instagram, I appreciate you watching it vertically, but you're going to get the best experience by heading over to YouTube. But anyway, wherever you're watching from, thank you. I will see most of the questions that you ask and post, especially if they come from YouTube or maybe even Facebook or LinkedIn. But I won't see every single chat. So if there's an important question or important thing you need to say, again, head over to YouTube and say it. That's where I definitely will see those questions. I see people popping in from all over the world. The type's super small. So George is here from Costa Rica. George, hello. Jeff, good morning from Yorktown, Virginia. Victoria, welcome. And thank you all for being here. And people that are watching the replay later, thanks for watching the replay in the future. Let us know how the future is. Anyway, the other housekeeping rule. If you are not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channels. Especially to the YouTube channel. We're just under that 500K mark, and it's I have a goal. Hopefully by the end of the year I can get there. It doesn't cost you a thing. Don't ever have to watch a single video if you don't ever want to. Just hit that subscribe button, and if you do hit the subscribe and especially the notify, then you will be notified when I'm doing special streams and events and videos and so forth and so on. So I know a lot of people say, hey, I didn't even know you're going to be on. That's one way to know I'm going to be on, is hit that subscribe and hit that that notify. So if you're following me on other social media channels, Instagram, Threads, LinkedIn's, X, wherever it is, it's usually Terry Lee White everywhere else. So just head over to those other channels and follow me there as well. All right, that was it. That was the housekeeping. We're good. We'll get back to the chat so I can make sure I'm seeing it. There we go. Cool. Hello, is it JR Flores? Hello as well. And everyone still streaming in as we get started. So let's go ahead and dive right in without further ado. I'm going to switch over to Lightroom just for a second here. And I'm in Lightroom Classic, whether it's Lightroom Classic or Lightroom Desktop. And when we say Lightroom Desktop, a lot of people are like, what's Lightroom Desktop? That's what you would sometimes call Lightroom Cloud. There's a desktop version of that as well. So anyway, whether you're in Lightroom Classic or Lightroom Desktop, either one also has the ability to send images over to Photoshop. So even if you are starting your process in Lightroom and then you say, hey, I need some things that Lightroom can't do, that would be the reason for going to Photoshop, then that's when you would head over to Photoshop from Lightroom to do that. So for example, I've got an image here that the sky is not that amazing on. So let's click on that image and let's just, I can right click on it. I can use a keyboard shortcut, lots of ways to do it. I'm going to just simply say edit in Photoshop. Now, when I say edit in Photoshop, depending on what's going on, I got Photoshop already open. It could just open it like it just did. And in this case, in Lightroom, you can mask the sky. You can make sky adjustments. You can tone and color the sky, but you can't replace it with a different sky. And so if your sky is hopeless, like this one is, then that would be a reason why you'd come over to Photoshop to do it. So if I go up to my edit menu, there's sky replacement under edit. I bring it up and it brings up some skies for me to choose from. Now, these some of these skies are built in, or I should say, a lot of these skies are built in. You can also add your own, and I encourage you to add your own because then that keeps the photo 100% yours. So you can hit the plus sign and add your own sky. So if you were out one day and you see a beautiful sky, go ahead and take a picture of it because you never know when you might need that sky. Also, if you're going to use this feature, be sure that if you're going to pick a different sky, that the sky kind of matches the mood or the time of day of what's going on in the scene. In other words, don't choose a super bright sky on a drab background or whatever. Don't choose a middle of the day sky on a sunset scene. Those kind of things. In other words, use kind of like, if you're going to replace the sky, replace it with the kind of sky that would have been there had it been a good sky that day. So even though you got some beautiful skies here, they don't always match the photo that you're trying to use to replace them with. So just keep that in mind. So this is kind of a drab, I think, morning. So I would probably use a more drab sky, just better than the one that was there. Because some of these just look overkill or too much. Like, in other words, that looks very fake. That's not going to work. So just keep that in mind, that you still want the photo to look real when it's done, and some skies just don't match the scene that you're trying to replace it in. All right, I'm going to get out of this. That's not why I was just really coming here, but just to let you know that, yes, you can start in Lightroom or Lightroom Classic. Head over to Photoshop, do your Photoshop thing, and here, let me just, I should show you the whole process. Let me just go ahead and do that again, sky replacement, and we're just going to pick just a random sky here. I'm having a hard time because none of these skies are really for this photo. But let's say we do pick this one and we click OK. And by the way, you can still even make adjustments after the fact. So I can warm that sky up a little bit to kind of match a little bit better. I can maybe tone it down a little bit if it's too bright. There we go. I can kind of dial it in, even though that's not still the best sky for this. But anyway, I'll click OK. And as you can see, it added that as a non-destructive set of layers over here on the right-hand side. So if I pick up the layers panel, put it in the middle for my for my Instagram viewers here, it added this whole layer group called sky replacement. So if I turn that layer group off, the sky is right back to the original. So you didn't get rid of the old sky. You just kind of covered it up with the new sky that, in this case, is not a great match, but it's there. And then I can go ahead and hit save. So I'll hit save, let it save, saving. I'm looking in the lower left corner. And once it's saved, then I can close it, return back to Lightroom. It's saved. Let's close it. Let's head back to Lightroom now. And in Lightroom, it puts it right next to the original. So here was the original with the not a sky at all, like just white. And here's the one that's still not great, but better than what was there. All right, so that is how you can round trip from Lightroom or Lightroom Classic when you need to do something that Lightroom can't do. And Lightroom can't replace pixels like that. You can't choose new pixels from your other photo and put inside of a photo inside of Lightroom. So that's one of the use cases for Photoshop as a Lightroom user. Now I'm going to head over to Photoshop. I think we're going to do the rest here in Photoshop, because the round tripping doesn't change. It's the same. No matter what the photo, you start in Lightroom, you do all your adjustments in Lightroom, you hit edit, go to Photoshop, do whatever you're going to do in Photoshop, save it, comes back, puts it next to the original, no matter what you're going to Photoshop to do. So I don't need to keep showing you that over and over again. So in this case, let's just dive into 8 things that you would use Photoshop for. And these are not the only 8. These are just the 8 off the top of my head earlier this week that I came up with for why a photographer in particular would use Photoshop. So first and foremost, one of the other big things that photographers or anyone would go to Photoshop to do that Lightroom or other tools don't do as well is simply removing the background. Now, there's 2 things you might be doing. You might be just simply removing the background so that your image is transparent, meaning that the subject obviously is the little puppy here, and the background is the little street or the city street or town that he's in. If I don't need that town, then I just need the puppy, and I want to put the puppy on top of something else or another background or whatever. Then I just simply would remove the background. So in that case, if I hit remove background, it just does it for me. It makes a mask. So again, it didn't delete any pixels. And that's another thing I should point out, is that the Photoshop team has been working harder and harder to make Photoshop less and less destructive. And what I mean by destructive, if you're a photographer, you're used to everything in Lightroom and Lightroom Classic being non-destructive, meaning no matter what you do, what adjustment you make, whatever you do in Lightroom, you can always undo it. You can always come back and go the other way with a slider. Photoshop traditionally, especially when we go back to when I started in version 1 and version 2, was all destructive. Everything you did would permanently change the pixels. So you had to be super careful back then. Maybe keep a copy of the file without any changes, because there was no easy way to go back. Version 3, back in the 90s, added layers. And that was a huge thing for Photoshop users, to at least have a layer, and they could duplicate a layer and add more layers. And that way that would kind of keep the file from being destructive. But in the past, if you remove the background like this, it would literally remove those pixels. They would be gone. And so if you weren't careful and you needed that city back, it'd be too late. In this case, this is a mask here in the layers panel. And if I ever need that back, I can just simply hit the letter or hold on my shift key in this case. Hold on my shift key, click on that mask, and that mask is turned off temporarily. And that brings back the city that was behind it, or the street, I should say. So hitting the shift key again, clicking on the layer mask simply turns the layer mask back on and hides it. And you can always right click and say remove or delete layer mask. You can disable it, which is what we were doing, but you can also get rid of it. So, or apply it so it becomes a permanent part if you did want to edit the pixels. But we're not going to do any of those things. We're just going to keep it the way it is and put that back. And so that's one. Removing the background, saving this out. Now you got to be careful in what file format you save this in too, because I know photographers are very used to saving things as JPEGs. JPEG does not support transparency. So if I were to file, save as, JPEG, put it on my desktop, open it up, I'm going to see a white background because JPEG doesn't understand transparency. So if it sees transparency when you're saving it out of Photoshop, it turns everything that's transparent to white. And that's it. You'd have a puppy on a white background. And maybe that's what you want. So that would be, you'd be done. If you want it to be transparent, then you need to save it in a file format that supports transparency. The most simple interchange format, meaning like we use JPEG to give files away or put them up on a website or whatever. The second most common one is PNG, Portable Network Graphics is actually what it stands for. Some people just simply refer to it as PNG, PNG. So saving it as a .png, there's a checkbox for transparency, and it would support the transparency, and this object would remain on a transparent background. Saving it in higher end formats like Photoshop and TIFF would also preserve the transparency. So it's really up to you to decide if you want this transparent or not, and if you want it to stay transparent, the file format you save it in. Now, if I were to come from Lightroom, remove the background, hit save, and go back, it's going to save it either as a Photoshop file in a TIFF or a TIFF, and therefore it's going to keep the transparency anyway. But in this case, if you're just doing it in Photoshop, you need to make that decision when you're saving the file out. So that was number one, removing the background. Number two, while we're here, sometimes you want a different background, and that would be another thing a photographer may want to do. So maybe you shot, like we talked about the skies, maybe you shot a different street or your own yard, and you want to drop that in behind the puppy. You could easily do that. You could just drag and drop your image in, move it down underneath the layers, and then it would be your image in the background behind the puppy. I don't know. Let me see if I have, because now that I'm talking about it, I actually think I should probably show that. Let's see. I don't have a street, but I think I do have something I can use, at least for now. Yeah, let's use this. Let's drop that in. All right, it's just an interior shot. But if I drop that in now, and I'll go ahead and enter it. Now you notice the puppy's gone, because in my layers panel, Where did it drop it in? Layers always stack on top of each other, so it stacked it on top. The minute you remove the background, this became a layer instead of a background. It became layer 0 automatically. So if I just move this down, then the puppy becomes too big, unless it's like it's just perspectives off, too big, but it just becomes part of that scene. And you still have adjustments for the puppy, so you could still grab the puppy. You could scale, because remember, it's the whole thing, so you could scale it down to be more realistic. There are some issues with there's no shadows under the paws and all that, and those are things we're going to talk about fixing. And when I do use this shot, but just showing you that you can replace the background with one of your own, drag and drop it in, and good to go. Or let's undo, get back to where we were. Or you can generate a new background. So in your contextual taskbar, you have both choices. In contextual taskbar, you have import background. That's your own photo. Use your own photo, put it in there. It automatically puts it on the bottom, makes it a background, done. I should have done it that way. Or you don't have the perfect background and you want to generate it. Now, there's obviously advantages and disadvantages to both. Advantages to using your own background is it's yours. It's the exact one you want to use, and it's your photography or your stock image, whichever one it is. Generate means it's a wild card. You're going to make one. Hopefully it looks the way you want it to look. There's no guarantees because you're just describing a background and hopefully, doing a slot machine, and hopefully you're getting what you want. Either one is fine. So let's say we generate a background. Now it's going to ask me for a prompt. So I'm saying I want to generate a background, and I'm going to use my I have a shortcut. Summer day at the beach. I use that prompt all the time. Imagine, I think that's kind of where I want to spend a lot of time. Summer day at the beach. Anyway, generate. And again, I'm going to be just as surprised as you, because every time I do this, I get something different. So generate, and you're going to get 3 variations. So variation number 1 is there. Variation number 2 and variation number 3. So in your properties panel, you're always going to see those 3 variations to start off with. And if you don't like it, if you don't like the choices, you can always generate again. So in this case, I'm okay with, I like number 3 probably better. Yeah, I like probably 3 the best. Just looking at the colors and everything else, and also kind of how it blended the paw into the water and into the gravel and the sand there. You can still tweak and make changes and do all kinds of other things you want, but that added that as a layer underneath your puppy and did a cutout there. But there it is. You have your background image that it made for you based on the description. So either method it's totally up to you, whichever one works best for you. Next up, so that's of the 8 things, that's number 1, removing and replacing backgrounds. Number 2, removing distractions. And while Lightroom does have a increasingly better remove tool, it keeps getting better with each major version, it's a manual process for wires and cables, at least. You would have to grab the tool. I'm in Photoshop doing it, but then you'd have to paint the wire and then say, okay. And you'd paint them all. Like, you wouldn't just do it one at a time. You'd paint them all and click okay. But it would be a very manual process for you to do this. And yeah, it looks great. It got rid of the wire that was right there. Cool. But that could take you time, especially when you get into all the intricate parts of where it's overlapping the houses. Now, before anyone screams at me and says, well, that's the aesthetic of the street, those are the wires that are supposed to be there, then this is not for you. Leave your wires there. This is for people that do want to get rid of them. They find them as a distraction. So everything's a choice. You don't have to do it. If you want to keep the wires, by all means, keep the wires. So anyway, Photoshop has one advantage over Lightroom when it comes to removing distractions, and that is currently it has a distraction removal specifically for wires and cables that hasn't made its way to Lightroom at this point. So if I go to find distractions up here in the upper left corner, wires and cables is one of my choices, and I can just simply hit remove. Like there's no other option. Just hit remove. It will go seek and destroy all the wires and cables and get rid of them for me. That's it. Done. Wires and cables gone. So before, and by the way, it now automatically puts it on a new layer by default. So before, look at all the wires and cables, especially the ones going down to the houses and the ones going across the front of the houses. And not bad. I see a little cleanup here I do on the roof. Like that needs a little repair there. And this roof changed a little bit. But overall, that saved me way more time, even if I have to clean up a couple of things, as opposed to having to do all of it manually. Let's do one more. Here's another one. Again, city scene. Yes, those wires and cables are there for the cable cars or buses or whatever electric vehicles that use those cables. And if you want to keep them, keep them. If you don't, find distractions, wires and cables, remove. Done. And again, so let's quickly look at the before and after because you get used to it really quick. So that's before, that's after. Do your due diligence, check it, like scan the scene, make sure it didn't do anything crazy or weird in certain spots. And if you need to fix certain spots, go ahead. But I think this is going to be way faster than you doing every single cable manually. All right. So wires and cables, that's number 2. Number 3 is other distractions, actually. So general distractions. My numbering's off. I'm missing number 3, so we're just going to pretend. So this is kind of one where, yeah, I see wires and cables, but I see a whole bunch of other distractions too. And the Photoshop team has been working on this one for a while, and this came out earlier this year, and that's the ability to, we had people, we had wires and cables, now we have general distractions. So when I find general distractions, that will first go out and look for whatever the categories are for general distractions and see if they're in your photo. And not every photo is going to have every category, obviously. So this one has a ton of categories. That's why I picked it. So it's got barriers, cables and attachments, drain elements, fixtures, ground fixtures, identified objects, whatever that means, Photoshop team, poles, spots and dust, text, urban elements, vehicles, vehicle or visual clutter. Now, you don't have to take everything. And by the way, notice it didn't do wires and cables because you already have that as a separate one. You can turn off whichever ones you don't care. So you can say, turn them all off. I only want to get rid of certain things. So maybe I only want to get rid of the barriers. And for whatever reason, it thinks the barriers are on the roof. So maybe I don't want to get rid of those. Let me go to drain. Yeah, okay, so these are drain elements, meaning pipes, drainage pipes on the walls. Fixtures, yep, I'll keep those. Ground features. Okay, I'll leave ground features on. Identified objects, again, not sure what that really counts as. Poles. Okay, the poles are, of course, bring character to this street, so I wouldn't get rid of those normally, but just for the fun of it, let's get rid of them anyway. Spots and dust, we'll leave that on. Text, I'm going to leave off. Urban elements, and it's interesting, the shopping bag is an urban element, and some of the signs, so we'll leave that. Vehicles, there's a vehicle. No, that's really an escalator. That's really not a vehicle. So again, AI can sometimes, or a lot of times, guess wrong. So those are the ones I'm going to get rid of, and I'm going to go ahead and say, hang on, I'm going to go ahead and say yes. So in other words, once you check it off, then you give it your okay to say yes, get rid of those things, and it will do just the things you checked off. So again, leaving it up to you to make the final decision as to what you consider a distraction. Because honestly, I'd leave the poles. The poles wouldn't be a distraction, but I just want to see what it does when it gets rid of them. And I can see why I thought that escalator is a car. It kind of looks like one here from here, but there is an actual van back there. I'm not sure if that got highlighted. And I'll give it another second. And of course, it's still going to put the results on a new layer. So you're safe there. If you don't like what it did, you can always mask back in parts you want to keep, or you want to, or just go back to the original anyway. You would have the layer to do whatever you want to do with. This one's taking a minute. Oh, let's see. Hello, Cheryl from Central Florida. Yep, it is incredibly helpful. Let's see, find distractions, remove. Find distractions, remove portable white barriers at all special events. I agree. Oh, that one, for whatever reason, timed out, thinks my internet connection's not there. But anyway, I don't know if I'm gonna go through that again. Let's try one more time, maybe. Find distractions. Obviously, my internet connection's okay because I'm still streaming, but let's try one more. We'll just check one box. Hopefully it'll go faster. All right, so let's just turn off everything and let's just do polls. And okay. Give it another few seconds to do that. And if it doesn't work, we'll just move on. And I've done this exact image in my when this feature first came out. So if it doesn't work now and you need to go see it, just go look at that video from February or April when Photoshop rolled out this feature. And that is the beauty of being live, is that not everything works perfectly every time, especially when you're in front of an audience. Now it's just look like it's stalling. I'll give it another 10 or 15 seconds, cancel and move on. Eight, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, moving on. All right. Try general distractions, see if it works for you, but it should work. Like I said, I've done that exact image before and it worked fine. Next up, and this I've used this image a lot because it's a stock image. I'm hopefully not insulting the person that's whose image this is. But sometimes you have pictures where you need to make an adjustment to a photo, or you want to, and it's one of those adjustments that's subtle. For example, as you can see, this eye is a little bit more closed than this eye. It's subtle. It's not a big deal. Certainly doesn't need to do it, but it lets me show off this feature. And this feature is called Liquify. So one of the things you can do first is under the filter menu where Liquify exists, if you want to, again, keep things non-destructive, before you run any of these filters, first do convert for smart filters. What that will do is, don't show me again. It will make that layer a smart object layer. So it puts this little icon in the lower right-hand corner letting you know. And that way you can always come in and turn that object or that filter off or that adjustment off. So basically it's making what I'm about to do non-destructive. So now when I go to filter and I go to Liquify, the point I'm trying to make here is that Liquify can be used two ways. And if you're using it on faces, it has face aware Liquify. So what that means is as I hover over each part of his face, you see little UI elements letting me know, hey, it knows that that's an eye. It knows that that's an eye. It knows that's his nose. It knows that's his mouth. I mean, it knows this is the whole shape of his face. And this allows you to edit right on canvas. Or if you can't really tell what it did, you can always go over here to the panel and make your adjustments manually. So for example, if I go to eyes, there's a left eye and a right eye setting. So if I go to the left eye size and decrease the size of that left eye, it's subtle, but I just made that left eye a little smaller. If I go to the right eye and make it a little bigger, that's not so subtle. I wouldn't want to do that because that looks weird. But anyway, you can make those slight adjustments to your photo, and this is not going to be a good one for this one. So I wouldn't do it that way. What I might do instead is You can move it around, by the way, as well. And there we go. That would be better. And also this one, maybe close this one a little bit more to match. Again, just getting the size closer to being the same. No person's left and right eye are identical. That's why even if you copy the eye and put it on the other side, it doesn't look right. But it's just a matter of going from, here's the before, here's the after. So getting them closer in proportion is the goal here. You can also just have some fun here. So you make them smile, brown, give them a little bit more of a smile there. Just fun tweaks. Click OK. And again, that became a smart object. So I can always go back in, turn that off, turn it on, or get right back to Liquify. If I double click on it, it'll bring right back up the same interface and I can go and make the same adjustments. So we make them smile more. And then that becomes the adjustment. So again, non-destructive. You can always go back in and make changes. Now, this one's kind of a fun one. I just always do this one. It reminds me to tell people, when you're photographing me, never photograph me from the side. I don't want to look like this. I don't want to look like this from the side. That's a joke for myself. We don't want to make someone feel uncomfortable because they were photographed from an unattractive angle. Let's put it that way, or not unattractive, a non-flattering angle. And this is a non-flattering angle for this person. So we can, and obviously we don't want to make this person a bodybuilder. That's not their physique. But just to make a slight adjustment to make this a little bit better, we can do that. So for example, I can do the same thing, filter, Liquify, or first convert for smart filters. Then now, by the way, you notice that there's Liquify here and Liquify at the top. The one at the top is not the one you want. That's the one that just does the last one you did over again. So this is not a face, so we don't need to do that one again. We want to come and start from scratch. Now, in this case, one of the dead giveaways that you use Liquify is it adjusted parts of the photo that shouldn't have been moved. So one of the ways to stop it from doing that is freeze the areas you don't want adjusted. So there is a freeze masks tool. And what I'm saying is, like, for example, these are pillars and columns in the airport or wherever this is, train station. I don't want any of that stuff to move. Don't move any of this. I'm just masking over it saying, leave all of these pixels alone. Don't pull them, don't adjust them, don't move them. Don't give away the fact that I use Liquify. All right, so now that I got that area protected, nothing in the red will move. So then I can go back to my warp tool. And in the warp tool, what I'm going to do here is just simply, you want to make your brush. So my brush is fairly large, usually starts out small. You want to make the brush as large as the thing you're pushing. So if you're going to push something small, make the brush small. You're going to push something big, make the brush big. And again, we're not taking off 100 pounds. Maybe we're taking off 10. There we go. Just a little. And you take your time, do it smoother than what I'm doing here. And that's all about brush size as well. And just do your due diligence to just, again, go in and make some tweaks. And wrinkles in pants are also not great. And again, push the areas and freeze the areas you don't want to move. All right. So not the best job I've ever done on this image. And you can pull the other way too. So if you go too far, you can pull back out. But again, much better than where we were. And if we click OK, it looks pretty seamless. So this is before. This is after. So just making those adjustments to make a photo a little bit more flattering than what it was. All right. Next up. One of the other things that people do as a photographer all the time, or would like to do, but they can't because Lightroom doesn't allow you to add text to a photo. Something very simple, something very like you would think, hey, Adobe, you make fonts, you make type, you make type engines, put one in Lightroom. Let us type on an image. But nope, not there. So if you wanted to come to Photoshop to make my storytelling a little bit, obviously we know where this is, but if I wanted to just add a little graphic element to it that says what it is, I can do that right in Photoshop very easily. And Photoshop has been doing text layers since version 3. Yeah, so text has always been a layer. You just click your type tool, you come over to where on the image you want to type, you click, and it will put some sample text in there. You can change that sample text to obviously what you want it to say. You can select that text and make it whatever size you want. And the size, normally is it's relative to the resolution of the image. So to me, those numbers don't mean anything. The visual size means something. So I'm just putting my cursor right on the two T's, here, and I'm just dragging my cursor left and right to make it bigger or smaller. Because I don't care what the point size is. I care what it looks like. Now, once you get it to the size you want, you can also grab it and stretch it as a graphic as well. Then you can also choose the font. So if I go to my fonts here, I like pulling up this kind of menu because it lets me get into specific categories. So I can see all my scripts, for example. I can see all my handwritten fonts, for example. Ooh, I kind of like that one. What's this? Above and Beyond Script Regular. Ooh, that's a new one. I haven't used that one before. Above and Beyond Script Regular. I'll use that. And then I can go in. I can click that as a graphic, like I said, move it around. I can scale it as a graphic. Now that I'm looking at it with the word Paris, though, I'm not really that happy with it. So let's try a different one. It looked cool until I saw it actually on my word. So let's go back to scripts. And let's try, let's see here. Bickham script is my go-to, but I'm going to try something else. Let's try, yeah, that's more Paris-y. So we'll go ahead and click OK on that. And then I can, of course, scale that. You can make it whatever color you want. You can make it whatever size you want. You can rotate it. You can always go back in like I just did, make more changes to it if you made a typo. And it just gives you the ability to have text. Now, you can also, while we're here, this is like a bonus tip. You can, Photoshop has shapes. So if I go to my shapes here, there's a rectangle tool, for example. And if I go ahead and drag out a rectangle, there we go. And that rectangle can then be filled with whatever color I want to fill it with. So I can even sample one of the colors that's in the image or pick a color like that. No, not that one. Where's my... Oh, great. I'm picking, I'll see what I'm doing. Picking gradients versus colors. All right, let's go. Get that color. There we go. I'm just picking the color like from the image. So if I want to pick some of that blue, I can get that. Then, of course, the stroke. I don't want a stroke on it at all. So just take the stroke away, which was red. And now that I got that element, again, using layers, it puts things on top by default. Just move it down. And now my Paris is got something behind it that helps it stand out. And if the thing that's behind it is standing out too much, well, again, it's a layer, so you can always just simply lower the opacity of it. So I could dial it down so it becomes more see-through and not as obnoxious as a solid color. So you can just have fun doing things that, first of all, are not possible inside of Lightroom. And as a photographer, you can just add a little bit more story to your stories by just literally adding text. Now, we're almost to the end here, so let's get into Gen Expand. And Gen Expand is probably one of the #1 reasons that I love coming to Photoshop now is because, yes, Paris-y is a technical term. One of the #1 reasons I like coming to Photoshop is because aspect ratios and crop ratios aren't as flexible inside of Lightroom, and meaning I can pick a aspect ratio and crop an image. I can always go in, but I can't go out. I can't say I need this tall image, this portrait image to be wide. I have no way to do that inside of Lightroom without cutting off most of the image. So let's say I go to my crop tool with the letter C. And let's say this needs to be on a video cover or video frame. And I go to 16:9. That's what I'd be working with. I'd have to make the whole thing fit within that window. So basically, it's just going to be her face. But instead, I'm going to switch it from background to generative expand. And then I'm going to hold down my Option or Alt key and pull out. Let's make sure we got everything. Yep. Okay. So now I'm telling it, hey, I want to include my original photo, all of it from top to bottom. I just need more stuff on the sides. And before, you basically uncrop the image in Photoshop, you'd be left with this black or white space, and then you'd have to fill in and figure out what to put there. And heaven forbid you tried to clone those trees into all that space. It would be either very hard or look horrible. So by choosing Generative Expand, I can just hit Generate. And it'll use the Firefly model to fill and expand this. And I get 3 variations to pick from. So way easier, way more realistic, and way better than anything I would have tried to do manually. So that's one variation. Second variation, I mean, it's just which trees do you like better? The trees aren't the main focus, so either one will work for me, but I'll pick the first one. And now I got a video-wide 16:9 image from a portrait frame of my colleague, Teresa at Adobe, that I could use. So just way easier, better ways of getting the image to be the exact size and aspect ratio you need it to be using Generative Expand, especially when you need to add more pixels and not take away. All right, so for my Instagram crowd, that's what that looks like now. So I'll zoom out so they can see it in the middle of the screen. Okay, then we're gonna move on to the next image. Are you having fun yet? Let me know in the comments if any of these have been your favorite so far. Just let me know what you like, your favorite feature for coming to Photoshop for. Okay, next up, let's switch to my last couple of images here. So that was Gen Expand. Now let's talk about Generative Fill. Generative Fill is when you want to add something to the image that wasn't there. Now, again, we've already talked about you can add your own photos by dragging them in or importing them in. So it doesn't have to be Generative Fill. You can just add and layer images together. And we're going to do an example of that in the next one. Or you can do things that were literally impossible just a couple of years ago. So for example, this is a stock photo, it's not mine. And it's a model's posing on the floor. The seamless background, great. But the outfit, if we want to change the outfit, I'd have to go find another stock image because and hopefully I can find what I'm looking for, because there would be no way a mere mortal would be able to change her outfit without hours of work trying to do it manually. And that's if at all. I would never attempt it because it would just be too hard to do. So let's drag this image in. Let's say this is the outfit I want. I've not used this one before, so this is going to be interesting. So I'm now showing Photoshop what I want. Now I'm going to go to my selection tool and tell it to select the entire canvas. And then I'm going to bring up the contextual taskbar, Generative Fill. I'm going to switch the model. In this case, I'm going to use a model that's great at preserving the original subject. So I'm going to the partner models, which we're always adding more partner models. So we've added Gemini 3.1 here, Nano Banana 2. I'm going to say change the clothes on the model and be sure to include the sunglasses, watch, and shoes. That's it. Simple English. I'm not programming. I'm not writing code. I'm just telling it what I would tell a creative director to do. Hey, change the clothes on the model. Be sure to include those items, and let's go. So hit generate, and we'll see what we get. again, I'll be just as surprised as you because you never get the same result exactly the same twice. Anticipation is making me wait. Some will remember that commercial. Some won't. All right. that's a unique one. That's not what I was thinking, but it did do it. I'm laughing because I've never seen it keep the sweater. I've never seen it keep the original sweater, but it did it. It added the pants, the shoes, the sweater, or the yellow sweater, the watch, and the sunglasses. I'm laughing because I've never seen it keep the white one, the original one. All right, so let's see. I don't have any more variations here. So let's generate again. And I don't know if generating again, if I have to go back to the original to do this. So let's see what we get. So that's what I mean by like I'm entertained too, because I'm just as surprised as you. I've never seen it keep the original white blouse or sweater or shirt, whatever that is. And here we go. There we go. That's better. It got rid of the original white blouse, and that's closer to what I expected. All right, so it took 2 tries that time to get kind of what I was looking for, and maybe I want a third one. Now I'm seeing undergarment here, so I wouldn't waste time trying to generate that again. I photoshopped that out. I'd remove that little piece. That's it. So that's where generative fill can do things. Like I said, if you told someone 3 years ago to take a photo and replace the person's clothes with these clothes, they would look at you like you're nuts. It'd be cheaper to bring the person back in, have them put the clothes on and shoot it again than it would be the time it would take to do it digitally. Unless you're working for Industrial Light and Magic and you've got those kind of tools, and it's a no-brainer. But anyway, for mere mortals, that would have been very, very hard, if not impossible, to do in the past. All right. So let's talk about this image. Let's bring this one back up again. Now we're going to put something else here. And this is where we're not generating the image that we're going to put here. We actually have the chair we want to put in this room. The problem with compositing in Photoshop has always been not that you can't easily drag things in. The problem is making it look real. And that's always been an ongoing challenge. So we drag a chair in. And here, hang on, not trying to do that. Okay, there's our chair. And we put our chair and you size it, you do whatever you think makes it look best. And the problem is no matter where you put it in the room, it looks like it's floating because technically it kind of is floating. It was never in that perspective. It was never on that floor. It doesn't have any of those shadows. It doesn't have any of the things it needs if it were really in that room, let alone the lighting. The lighting is in this part of the room should be darker compared to the over there by the wall and the window part should be lighter. So no matter where I move the chair doesn't get any darker. It doesn't know that it should be matching that room. And also the rotation and perspective are off. So 2 things. Number 1, we now have a new rotate object, and it's getting, it's a rotate object 1.0, so it's going to get better. But let's say we say rotate object. So, yep, I'm going to let it go and do it 8-bit. And it's going to give me a preview while I'm rotating to get the orientation and perspective right. And then it'll render out back to closer to the original quality. You do lose some quality when you do this. So I'm not trying to BS you that it's not going to be perfect, but we can now, so look at this. We can rotate this chair, which was a 2-dimensional object at first, and we can even rotate it up and down. So I can get it more of that right perspective for what it would look like if it were shot, if I was shooting down onto this room. And again, I'm going to turn it a little bit more, and ooh, I don't want to turn it that much because then the rotation is really off. Let's do that right about there. Okay, so even with that, when I say done, and it's going to render out the version of that chair in that position, still not right for all the other reasons I said. Shadows not right, lighting not right, it just looks like you plopped an image on top of another image. And that's always been the issue. Ooh, did I lose? It looks like it chipped off part of the chair. But anyway, and you can edit the rotation to fix to, I don't know why it chipped off part of the chair there. Let's see. Yep, the part of the chair is chipped off. Anyway, I undo and do that again. But for the sake of time, I'm just going to hit harmonize. Harmonize is a feature, whether you generate something or bring in your own object, that tells it to look at the object you're bringing in and match it against the background you're bringing it into better than it was. And you get 3 variations to pick from of the harmonization. And that just looks better. I mean, yeah, the color is a little different, but looks better. The legs are closer to the floor. The shadows are there. Again, I could pick different versions of it. That's a better version of it. And that's too light for me. I'd say probably that one better. And the only thing I'd have to, again, fix that piece of the chair that got cut off. But that's the direction we're heading in now, with making it way easier for people to composite than it ever was before. Because let's say you didn't need to rotate or remove it. Let's say you photographed it at the right angle and you put it in there. You would still need to do all of those things, color-wise, shadow-wise, lighting-wise, to make it look like it was there the day you shot it. So yeah, this is why photographers are going to be using Photoshop more and more to do these kinds of things. If they need to add to a photo, composite a photo, put a person in a photo that wasn't there the day the group shot was taken. We get that request all the time. Can you add Uncle Jim? Uncle Jim wasn't there the day we took this photo. Here's a photo of Uncle Jim on the beach where the rest of the photo was taken inside. So the lighting's all off, the color's off, everything's wrong. And you would then be able to drop Jim in, right size, right perspective, put him behind somebody else, whatever. But the thing that would always make it look fake is the color of Jim's lighting and skin tone or whatever is completely different from everyone else in the photo that was really there in that room. So that's just, harmonization is just going to make that a lot better going forward. All right, next up, and we did this already, replace sky, but I just want to give you a better example of this. And this is like that Ferris wheel drab kind of day. Let's go up to sky replacement one more time. And boom, that just starts to look better right off the bat. Now, again, keep in mind, Ferris wheel's still drab, so don't go crazy making it, all bright and sunny, because it looks like that was taken either on a cloudy day or a later time in the day. So pick a sky accordingly for doing that. And again, once you pick your sky or you put in your own sky, which would even be better, you can adjust parts of it the way you want. So I can dial that in to be closer to what the Ferris wheel lighting's like. Click OK, and that's my sky replacement. So hopefully you've seen some reasons why, as a photographer, you would consider using Photoshop. Photoshop is an amazing, powerful tool. It does take, I won't BS you, it does take time to get used to using it and learning it. But I haven't met anyone that said, I learned Photoshop and I hate that I learned it. It's so disappointing. People that learn Photoshop love Photoshop and use it all the time. I use it when necessary. I don't jump to Photoshop just to do things because I can. I jump to Photoshop to do things because I need to, because I couldn't do the things I needed to do inside of Lightroom. So if you are the kind of person, you're editing landscapes and your Lightroom's doing everything you need to do for your landscape, cool. You're done. But if you're shooting other genres and you're doing high-end portrait retouching, you're doing compositing, you're changing clothes on people, you're changing the background, you're adding different skies that you shot, you're doing all of those things, then Photoshop's your tool for those times you need it. So with that said, I want to thank everyone for joining me this week. Thank everyone for watching the replay. And hopefully you got something out of today. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see coming up in these master classes on Fridays that I'm back to doing now for the last couple months. And we'll catch you on the next one. Bye, everybody. Have a great rest of your day and great weekend.